time, I'll give some greetings in my father's language, Quechua. Anyay pachat kamachta, apukunata, pachamamata, manyakunin saminchay ninkuta, pusiri ninta, chaninta, tach, kausaita, sumakta, kapak, punukai taikai, lalit pakuk, pachapi. I give greetings from the Quechua Nation, the indigenous nation of Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia, and vicariously from the Catalan nation of northern Spain. I give thanks to the Apus and the Pachamama and all her creations. And also I give thanks to all of the people gathered here today to work together towards a more resilient future in this epoch of crisis and change, but also an epoch of opportunity and hope as well. So on that end, I want to share a story of hope and inspiration in the region of La Garrocha, and it's a pilot project with the MIT called Territori Resilient, Resilient Territory. It's a project co-coordinated, actually, if you can go back, co-coordinated by civil society and public administration. I am an activist with the cooperative Resilience Earth, and I'm working in collaboration with the public administration, and here there's my colleague Jordi Terradas, who is with Adrinoc, part of the consortium of the 21 municipalities in the region. And yeah, now I can go. So the Garrocha is a very beautiful volcanic region, over 40 volcanoes in the Pyrenees of the foothills of the Pyrenees. It is 735 kilometers square with 56,000 inhabitants. And yeah, we can move to the next one. And it's a pretty exciting pilot project because it's we consider it a case of complexity. So a little bit what you were speaking of, Federica, with your region. It is a region that groups 21 municipalities that have actually a long history of working together. Because of need, because it's a really isolated area, and a lot of other services weren't reaching, so they pooled together their resources to start delivering three principal areas of public service together. And those are environmental and public health, social services, and also economic innovation or support of small businesses. So that's the second element of interest in this pilot project, is that we have a really engaged public service of these three consortiums that actually are managing the majority of public services in the region. And last but not least, it has a tremendously active civil society. It is a region historically known for its social movement, political movement, and ecological movements. From the Civil War and before that in the labor movement, and also in the 80s and 90s a significant environmental movement that even was able to establish the Garrocha region as the first natural park because of the volcanoes. It's the Garrocha Volcano Zone Natural Park. So it's the first natural park established in Catalonia, and also the first to gain a certificate of the European Charter for Sustainable Tourism in protected areas more recently. The active civil society, so we have 582 volunteer-run local organizations. In fact, one of our local-run volunteer organization representatives is here taking pictures in the back, Mark. And they are covering things from food security to culture to sports to social justice and agroecology as well. So the main challenges when we were beginning this project, we can kind of group them into two. So the first one is philosophical. So it was bringing together actors that are really active and proud of what they're doing, but from diverse political and philosophical positions. So we have public administration, politicians, municipalities, and then we have this really, really active social and ecological movement body of activists, and trying to bring them to the table took a lot of time, which I'll explain a little bit later how we resolved that, and trust building. The second one, I think also, Federica, you mentioned it, was technical challenges, which is we're working with people with really busy schedules, so not just the mayor of X community, but also the very overly committed activist from ex-civil society organization, and trying to get them to find a day and a place to meet to work together towards towards reaching common goals, making decisions for this pilot project. Some successes. I'll begin with the first activity that we were doing, which was the research exercise using the MIT grid analysis. And that was really, really helpful for us to be able to identify the three main places where we could act, right? Where we saw that with a little bit of action, we were going to have a really large impact in that region of 21 municipalities. The first one was evaluating that a lot of our projects have this potential to affect vision of the politicians, but we have to get into those spaces where they're making those decisions. The second was affecting a general culture and understanding and awareness around resilience and the transition process towards resilience amongst the general population or civil society. And the third, which was a little bit more of a surprise for us, was that there were a lot of indicators that were showing that we were going to have a huge impact in sustainability and resilience by bridging public sectors together. So by bridging different departments of public administration and having them work more collaboratively together. So kind of sequentially from that analysis, we started doing some public sector bridging, which have been really, really fruitful. We've decided the pilot actions and have already begun them at the beginning of this month in September. We did our first public awareness campaign in July on the concept of transition and resilience. And we also did a training in June for public workers. It was open to we had initially expected around 20 individuals, and over 40 people signed up and participated in that. And since then, they've sent us lots of emails and updates saying that they've already started applying the tools that they learned in that workshop in their daily practice. So it was very, very exciting to see. The process. So here we put a picture of bamboo growing, because our reflection as a group was that, and I'm sure you all are aware, bamboo takes a while to grow. So for the first 7 years of when you plant a bamboo root, you don't really see anything happen because it's all happening underground. So it's establishing the network of root systems and deepening its roots and getting strong. But then after 7 years, in the first week of its life, the first shoot will grow a meter high. And in fact, in the first 7 weeks of that shoot's long life, it will grow 7 meters high. So 7 meters in 7 weeks after 7 years of not really seeing anything visible on the surface. So that was an analysis that we took on as a example of how our process was, because it was a lot of networking, a lot of researching, a lot of meeting individuals, building that kind of trust one-to-one with people, encouraging to meet with the other person, perhaps from a politically different position, but at the same table, the same meeting. And so all of that really small, not very visible work led to really, really, I think, effective training in June, and then the larger public campaign in July. So the actions that the whole group decided upon were 3. We couldn't stick to 2, I'm sorry. So we decided to take on an existing project or activity that the region does, which is called the Social, Ecological, and Economic Observatory. And what the observatory does is produce a report, a book, which actually Jordi has a few copies of, if you want to take a peek. And they produce that every year for 4 years now. And we thought that it was a really good beginning, but that it could become more. So we're going to work with the group that's working on the observatory and make it so that it becomes a tool for not only politicians and public workers, but also civil society to make informed decisions on policy making and practice in transition towards resilience. I think this is a really good space because it brings a lot of different actors together, but also could be used as a tool that politicians can use as decision making, and technicians can use as something practical, and civil society can use to inform their activist campaigns more. The second action is actually a strategy in communication for social and ecological transformation, which culminates into a 3-part conference, which we'll be doing later on in this year, on territory-based resilience. And so this 3-part conference is actually to address those 3 key publics that came out of the research process. So politicians would be the first part, so a specific speaker and objectives for politicians, and then public workers and active civil society on the second one, which would be more training in really practical tools to apply resilience in their day-to-day work. And then lastly, a conference open to the general public in a large open space to engage the public through participatory activities in understanding what resilience is, living it through participatory activities, and seeing how it can relate to their day-to-day work and life. And the third one was trainings, because we're getting a lot of requests for trainings after the training we did in June. So we put that there as trainings upon request, and already have received a few requests on that from both politicians and public workers. The last is a message. So we agreed on 3 final messages, actually. So we see that the EU, because of its position, obviously, and resources and capacity, it can be a really significant catalyst of change. And they can do so by doing 3 things related to resilience. So developing EU policy on Europe-wide resilience. And this could open the door or inspire regions and nations to do similar policy development on smaller scales. The second is do a public campaign or raise public awareness about resilience, and really extend that concept and discourse across Europe and beyond. And lastly, support innovation on resilience in rural areas. So what we're seeing in our context in Garrocha, which is a rural area, that with it's a really ideal place to experiment. And if other experiments like that are happening in other rural areas, you're seeing that the results of a rural area with a small population and a large land base actually has really interesting results in a shorter time frame. So I will conclude actually in Quechua once again and say Kausai Pak and Kaisui, honoring all of you for being here today and being intrepid and adventurous and working together towards a resilient future. Thank you.